tonight. I'm going to pray a minute. So, Father, we thank you for this word. We thank you for Debbie. Thank you for anointing her. Thank you for speaking through her. I pray that you open our hearts and our minds and our ears to receive what you have for us. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Classes are bugging me tonight. Something that Dad told me today when he did that video, and the lady that did it for him, he seems to be getting different ladies to help him each time. And that particular one yesterday or whenever it was, said to him, that really was awesome. Most of these ladies and guys that work with him aren't Christians. But they get the word, especially when he's doing the preaching and they have to video him. And she asked him, where can I hear it again? Because she said it stayed with her all day long. So, yeah, these videos, they work. So, spread them. They work. So, he told her how to find it and where to go. So maybe she'll come to church sometime. So, my story tonight is about Joseph. I love Joseph's story. You can find it in Genesis 37 through 50. Joseph was 17 years old when it started. I just can't imagine. 17 years old. And he was the second to youngest of Jacob's sons, or children. He was the second to the youngest of the sons. Benjamin was younger than him. But, parents, don't do this. Do not do this because it hurts your kids. His favorite was Joseph. Even though he was the youngest, or second to the youngest of the boys, his father favored him, made him a coat of many colors and favored him over all of them. And even he gave him things that he probably shouldn't have been giving him, because in those days, the oldest got everything. But for him, Joseph was Rachel's child, and Rachel was favored, as we heard on Sunday, Leah and Rachel. She was the favored. And so, parents, don't do this. You'll find out why. It caused his brothers to hate him. We don't want that. It causes dissension. And as you find out in this story, it caused a whole lot more because his brothers hated him. So, he had a dream. Actually, he had two dreams. And he told those dreams to his brothers, which caused them to hate him more, because now he told them that they would be bowing down to him. And it caused them to hate him even more because of these dreams. Now, I was telling Clark, I've heard so many preachers say that, oh, he was just so cocky that he told his brothers this to make them even, to lord it over them, make them even madder. But I really don't think he was cocky. I really don't think that was his nature, because he was full of integrity. He was full of God's favor. So I don't think that was part of his character. I think he had a cool dream and he wanted to tell somebody. And so he told his brothers. His brothers hated him, so now they are talking amongst each other, scheming to come up with a plan. They were out, and his father sent him to them, and when he approached them, they stripped him off of that coat, threw him into a cistern. So now he's down in a hole. It was dry, so there wasn't any water in it, but he was in a hole now. It's because his brothers were trying to figure out what to do with him. Along came some Ishmaelites, they're cavern, so they decided to sell him. And so they sold him to the Ishmaelites. And he was 17 years old. And he's now being sold as a slave. And I was thinking, I wonder if they sold him for 30 shekels of silver. But when I read it, it said 20. So apparently in those days, there was a big slave trade. And they sold them anywhere from 15 to 30 shekels. And so he just happened to be sold for 20. That's all they got for his brother. I really don't know how much that is in today's, I don't know, workers that get killed or what? $10,000 worth, $10,000. So if you hit a worker on the side of the road, you'll pay $10,000 and maybe go to jail. So now he's with the Ishmaelites, and he's on the way down to Egypt with these Ishmaelites. They take his coat, they dip it in blood of a goat, and take it to their father and say, your son is dead. And he mourned his son for years. He probably never got over it. He probably mourned him till the day that he saw him again. He mourned him. So he's on his way to Egypt. They get to Egypt and they sell him to Potiphar. Potiphar is an Egyptian, an officer of the Pharaoh, and a captain of the guard. And I learned that by reading my Bible. It tells that story. I asked Clark today, I said, do you think that Potiphar was with the Pharaoh and the Pharaoh's army was killed in the sea, the Red Sea? I don't know, it was just something I thought of. Because he was a captain of the guard. Because of Joseph's integrity, he and the favor of God, he had a relationship with God. So he found favor with Potiphar. And because of that, Potiphar put him over everything he owned. Everything he owned. And he didn't worry about it. He could go off and come back and know that Joseph had taken care of everything. But the enemy had different plans, and Potiphar's wife decided she wanted Joseph. But Joseph's integrity was too high. He loved the Lord too much. He said no, and he spurned her. And because he spurned her, she wasn't taking that for no. She didn't like it. No one spurned her. So when he left and fled the room, she grabbed his coat, pulled it off of him, and he fled. So when Potiphar came back, she put up an uproar and said, get rid of him, look what he did, blah, 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 blah. And he took him to the prison. So now he's in prison. I don't know how old he was by that time, but he was anywhere between 17 and 20 probably. He's in prison. And those prisons in those days were not good. I wouldn't want to be there. But because of his integrity and the favor with the Lord, he found favor with his guards. They also put him over the prison. And he did everything because they trusted him. Because they saw something in him that everybody that knows the Lord and loves the Lord, people should see it in you too. Wherever you go, people should see Jesus in you. And so he was in prison, and by coincidence, I think not, the cupbearer and the baker, the Pharaoh's baker and his cupbearer, was in prison. I don't know what they did, or whatever they did. Pharaoh didn't like it, put him in prison. They had a drink. By coincidence? I think not. God had a plan. So Joseph interpreted their dreams, and he told them to remember me to the Pharaoh. And they didn't. Well, one of them lost his head. He didn't make it. But the other one, the cupbearer, forgot it. Now, a little bit down the road, the Pharaoh had a dream. Nobody could interpret that dream. All of his musicians, all of his sorcerers, nobody could interpret the dream he had. Aha! The cupbearer remembered. Joseph, he interpreted my dream and it was good. I'm back in the king's favor. So he told the Pharaoh. They got him out of prison. He came to the palace and interpreted the dream. He found favor with the Pharaoh because he had integrity and he had a relationship with Jesus. He had favor with Jesus, so he had favor now. He was second only to Pharaoh. He had all control of the land. All of the control of the land. Everything. He only answered to Pharaoh. Everybody answered to him. He's probably in his early 20s now, probably. And he's over all of Egypt. Coincidence? I think not. I think God had a plan for him. And you're going to see that plan in just a minute. So you say, what does all this mean? Well, I go back to, I've got 4 scriptures here that the Lord gave me. Psalms 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. Joseph was stripped of everything. They took his coat. All he had was the undertunic that they wore in those days. His coat was gone. His family was gone. His home was gone. Everything he had was gone. Stripped, gone. And sometimes we feel like we go through those times too. We're going through a valley. This valley of the shadow of death doesn't mean all the time that you're going through death. It may mean the death of a vision. It may be the death of a dream. It may be that you're just going through a super duper hard time right now. Just like Joseph, don't you think he went through a hard time? Don't you think he was up against a mountain? He was in a valley. He was hurt that his brothers would do that to him. But God's rod and God's staff, they comforted him. That's what a shepherd does with sheep, with his rod and his staff. He gathers them to him, and he loves them, and he comforts them. And that's when you go through a valley, whatever your valley is, divorce, death. Rick's going through a valley right now. They don't have any income. That's a valley. He's going through it now. But God is with him. God will take care of him. The other one was, God is the God of the impossible in Luke 18:27, but he said, what is possible with men, and what is impossible with men is possible with God. All things are possible. Rick's healing is possible. You looked at it when he was going through his time before he had his transplant. When he was going through all that heartache, people thought it was impossible, but God said, no, I have plans, and it's going to be a transplant. Could have God healed him totally? Absolutely, because all things are possible with God. But God had another plan for Rick. He's doing it a different way, and that's okay, because sometimes God does things a little bit different than what we envisioned it. Joseph's life is not what he envisioned. He thought he would be a shepherd or something at home. He didn't realize that he was going to be in charge of a whole country, Egypt. He didn't know that. God has other plans sometimes. With God, all things are possible. Look at this building. We didn't have a dime. Ask Mike and Dad. They didn't have a dime for this place. And so it was impossible, guys. This place was impossible. But God said, no, it's possible. Yes, amen. Then, Genesis 50:20, after all of it happened, and his brothers came, and they fell upon him, and asked for forgiveness, and he forgave them, and he left. There was a relationship again. They were starting to build that again. He said to his brothers, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. God had a plan. His brother's plan was for evil. Can you imagine? They never, all those years, they never told their dad the truth. How did they live with themselves? I can't imagine them living with the possibility that their brother might be dead. They had no idea. They meant it for evil. But God had a plan. God's plan was to take him to Pharaoh. Yeah, he went through a whole lot of heartache to get there. And sometimes we have to. We learn through our heartaches and our trials. We learn. He learned a lot through his trial. But God had a plan to take him from where he was at to where he was at in Egypt, to save everyone, because there was going to be a big, huge famine for 7 years, I think. There was going to be a famine. Did God put Joseph in Egypt by coincidence? I think not. I think God had a plan, and that's another one. Jeremiah 29:11. God has a plan, and God has a purpose for each and every one of us. He has a plan and he has a purpose. Sometimes they don't look like we think they should look. We think our lives should be perfect, and our lives should be A, B, C, and D, and you have it planned out, A, B, C, and D. But God says, no, B needs to go in front of A, and C needs to go in front of D. And he changes it around, because he has a plan, he has a purpose for each and every single one of us. He had a plan for Joseph. He needed him because of his integrity, because of his love for the Lord. He needed him in Egypt to save the known world at that time, especially the Israelites, because they were part of the family. They were part of it. And for 7 years, Joseph had gotten them to bring all the grain and stock their silos and all the stuff that they were going to need to survive that famine that was coming. God put him there for a reason. God put him in Pharaoh, in Potiphar. He put him in that cistern. He gave him to the Ishmaelites. He gave him to Potiphar. He put him in prison to be at the exact spot where he needed to be. And that's what God's got for you too. You think sometimes that I don't like this. This is not where I'm supposed to be. But God has a plan for you. He has a purpose for you. It's not to harm you, but to give you a good future and a hope. Our hope, that's our hope. Going to heaven is our hope, guys. That's the hope He's given us, is to go to heaven. So God has a plan and a purpose. And when you go through those valleys, you go up those mountains that sometimes those mountains come up all of a sudden, God is going to be with you. He's going to walk with you through those valleys. He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. He will walk each step of the way with you, and you'll make it over those mountains or through the mountains. Sometimes we have to go through them, and you come out on the other side. But He doesn't leave you. He doesn't leave you to walk them. He didn't leave Joseph to walk those valleys that he walked through. I can't imagine what it would have been like. What the slaves went through that came to America from Africa. I can't imagine what they went through. One thing I do know is God is with us and walks with us and doesn't leave us. That's the assurance that I have and that you should have, that you never walk alone. He's there. You may not feel Him all the time, but He never leaves your side. And He walks with you through it all. And He has a plan. The enemy may mean it for evil, but God's going to take those things in your life that the enemy has tried to trip you up with, and He's going to turn those things around, and they're going to be for His glory. And He is going to work through you. You just wait and see. Whatever it is, you just wait and see. God is going to do it. The impossible is possible with man. You got bills that you can't pay, put them on the altar. Give them to God and say, okay, God, I can't do it. It's impossible. I can't do it. Put them on the altar. And watch God work. Watch Him work, guys. I've seen it time and time again. God is the God of the impossible. He has a plan and He has a purpose for you. He loves you. If you don't know God tonight, you need to get a relationship with God. You need to ask Jesus into your heart. You need to have him come in and wipe out all those things in your heart that's causing you heartache and causing you to go away from God. You need to ask him to come in and ask him to forgive you of your sins and ask him to come into your heart tonight if you don't know the Lord. And if you are having problems, this altar is open. You can come up here and we'll pray for you. Mike and I will pray for you. Mike and Clark will pray for you. Everybody will pray for you. If you need prayer tonight for something that's causing you pain or something that you need help with, all the altars are open. Father, I just praise you tonight for your wondrous love. I praise you that you are the God of the impossible. I thank you tonight, Lord, that you are God, that you never leave us, that you are always with us, and you love us no matter what. Thank you, Father, and I pray for each one that's here tonight, Lord. We weren't here by accident. You brought us here. Each one of us that are here tonight was brought here because God drew you. And Father, I just pray for each and every single one of them. We live in this world. We have pain, we have heartache, we have problems, we have sickness. But Father, you are the God of the impossible. And Father, I know that you will be with each one of them. That you will do the impossible in their lives. And those that don't know you, God, I'm asking tonight that they will ask you into their hearts and into their souls. Because you love them. And nothing that they have done is too bad to come. To come to the cross and kneel at the cross and say, Jesus, forgive me of my sins. I want you to come into my heart. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Father, I praise your name. I praise your holy name, Lord. I thank you, Jesus, that you loved us enough to die for on the cross for us. And I give you all the praise. I give you all the glory. In Jesus' name.